Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest from UCFB's Insight series, where we go behind the scenes with the careers of various high-profile people in football and sport. I'm Mark Clement, and a big part of my own professional life has been listening to people's life stories. I do it on BBC Radio 5 Live. I do it on various BBC One football programs, and I do it as an event host, including for UCFB. I host their annual Future Leaders Graduates Conference, and I also launched the first of their global summits in Melbourne in early 2020. And I couldn't be happier to be in the company of today's guest. He played a major part in reshaping England's teams as Director of Elite Development at the FA. Dan Ashworth is now Brighton's Technical Director. Bearing in mind, I always think of you in a strategic light, planning ahead and all the rest of it. Does that apply to your career as well? Have you got it all sort of mapped out where you want to be by a certain time?
No. I don't think careers work like that. I think you can have an idea of what you want to do, where you want to be. But my career, if you'd like me to expand on the question, I never thought I'd be a technical director. So I was academy manager at the time at West Brom. Got called down to see the chairman, December 2004, I think it was. And I just thought I was getting called down for a normal meeting. I would see him once a month. He just said, look, we'd like you to be sporting and technical director. What do you think about it? And we'd had someone in place who'd been doing it for 2 or 3 months. The role was very, very new to England. I think there was only Damien Comolli that was doing the role at the time. I just said, well, what is it? I don't know what it is and why. So we ended up me agreeing to do it for 6 months until the end of the season. With me asking for in writing if I could keep my academy manager's job if I didn't like it or if he didn't like me.
Wow.
So I fell into it, really, Clem, if I'm being honest. So, no, I would have had no idea if you'd have asked me 16 years ago, did I want to be a technical director? No.
That's amazing, because I guess when you look at your sort of life and professional life in isolation, and particularly that your playing career was kind of non-league and out to the States and all the rest of it, I just wondered if you're one of these people that quickly realised that perhaps playing-wise, it wasn't going to be quite up there, but then latched on to putting your entire mindset into, coaching and then on from there. But no, obviously.
Well, I think you're right. I knew I wasn't going to be good enough as a player. So played youth team, reserve team at Norwich City and fell out of it, really, and went into non-league. Crawley at the time were non-league, Hastings Town, and did the non-league circuit whilst I was at university. I think I knew probably deep down, even as early back at sort of 16, 17, I took my prelim badge, it was at the time. So your young listeners who logging into this won't even know what a prelim is. But it was, I suppose, the equivalent of a B licence, and you were supposed to be 18 to take it. But I was captain of Norfolk and 17, and they allowed me on the course early as a favour. And Norwich at the time as well. So I remember taking my prelim, getting that. And then Sunday mornings, I used to cycle to take Sproulston under 11s. So I was still sort of playing on a Saturday and I cycled 6 miles to take Sproulston under 11s just because I love coaching and kids and what have you. So I suppose looking all the way back there, even at 17, I probably knew I wasn't going to be good enough to play and earn a living playing and really enjoyed just being in the game and being in professional football and being in sport and coaching and helping in particular young players. And I suppose it grew from there. I got a foothold in the game and off I went.
So wait a sec. I guess your aspirations then, before that fateful moment when you got invited to see the hierarchy at West Brom, were what? That you might have wanted to be a manager yourself? You were heading in that direction, or academy role?
No, I didn't want to be a manager. I'd been
Why didn't you want to be a manager?
Academy manager.
No, a manager for a first team manager. Why were you so adamant? Because few people are that strident about that particular decision.
No, I didn't want to do it, Clem. A couple of reasons. I really, really enjoyed my roles in youth development. So I first came back to the country in '98. I'd been over in America playing and coaching for a bit. When academy system first started, the Charter for Quality back in '98 that Howard Wilkinson and the FA put in place. So that's how old I am. That's 22 years ago now.
Wow, you are old.
So yeah, been in it professionally for 22 years in this country. And I came back, I worked for Peterborough's Academy for 3 years, Cambridge as head of youth for 3 years. And in both of those, pretty much did every role within the club that you can do. And I remember reading a book, Sacred Hoops, basketball book actually, but they talk a lot about time in the trenches. And that 6 years, I did everything. I was reserve team coach. I was under 19 coach and the 17 coach. I took the under 8s development centres. I worked every night in the Centre of Excellence. I drove the minibus. I was physio. I was psychologist. I washed the kit. I fell asleep once and flooded the kit room at Cambridge United. It was I'd taken the under 17s or something in the morning, went to the first team game, and my job was to wash the kit if we had a 15s game the next day, the Sunday. But I couldn't get in the kit room until after the first team game had finished. So what I would do is wait until it all cleared out, go in the kit room, and it was an old-fashioned washing machine with a lid. Chuck all the kit in, and you had to fill it up with a hose pipe from the sink. So I put the hose pipe in, plugged the hose into the washing machine. It used to take about 20 minutes to fill up. So I put it all on, went and sat in the gaffer's office on my own, watching, I don't know, Final Score or Grandstand or whatever it was at the time, and fell asleep. And an hour and a half later, I woke up and the whole kit room was flooded.
Wow.
So anyway, back to time in the trenches, I guess. I then moved to West Brom. I became academy manager there and did that for, would have been, 5 or 6 years, I think. I probably got my dates wrong there because that doesn't quite stack up. 2004, must have been a bit later with Jeremy Peace. Must have been, anyway, 5 or 6 years as academy manager. Did my pro license because I wanted to sort of be the best coach I could be. And again, would take the 21s, sometimes reserves, the odd bit of first team stuff pre-season. We used to really focus on taking 16s, 18s, working in the academy younger down, and was a real hands-on academy manager and a coach. And I just loved dealing with young players that wanted to learn, players that wanted to be professionals. And that was it. That was my career. I just wanted to be the best academy manager in the country, in the world, and until that either fateful or destined day that I went down to see the Jeremy Peace in the December.
Listen, I mean, this whole sort of technical director, sporting director, director of football role, it's almost taken on kind of mystical proportions, I think, in the English game. And even those of us that are, diehard fans or been steeped in the industry for a couple of decades still don't quite understand the distinction, because I think the 17 of the Premier League clubs now have it, and we have got head of football relations, sporting director, technical director, performance advisor, director of football operations. I mean, help. Are they all different? Is it what's going on? Why the different titles?
Yeah, so I suppose a long-winded way of answering this. So this is a fairly new role to England. But if you go to Germany, they have sporting directors. You go to France, Italy, Spain. It's a well-established role, and it's the norm. Now in Germany, the sporting director is all powerful. Really, they sit on the bench. They do the post-game team review with the press. They do the pre-match stuff as well. So they really are heavily involved with the team. So. When I moved from West Brom to the FA, there wasn't too many in the role, and so one of the things that I wanted to try and do was set up some development, some CPD, and some qualifications for the recruitment arm of football. When I've been at West Brom as technical director, when I was doing end of year reviews with the staff, if you were a coach, it was easy because if you've got your B license, go and do your A license, go and do this CPD event, go and go on a two-day course or whatever it may be. Physios were the same, psychs, it was easy, but there was never anything for talent ID. There was no qualifications, there's no CPD, there was no events, and yet recruitment is probably the hardest and most important part of any club. You've got to get the staff and the players right that come in, and from a recruitment point of view, where it doesn't matter how good you are as a coach. So we put in place this pathway that mirrored the coaching pathway. So level 1 was volunteer mum and dad, running grassroots, online course, 2 hours, Don't just pick the big, strong ones. Don't just think about September birthdays, August birthdays, real basic stuff.
Yeah.
Right the way through to level 5, which was supposed to be to match the pro license and be the equivalent of a pro license for technical directors. So we invited in the people in the game at the time that we felt were doing that sort of role. So we thought there was about 25 clubs across the professional leagues that were doing it. We invited them all in and said, look, we'd like to develop a qualification for technical directors. It's not going to be mandatory. It's just to help the next generation and to help people who are aspiring technical directors. Will you help me put it together? You're living it. You're doing the job. So between us, let's develop a course. Let's develop some modules. Let's develop what it looks like over the next 18 months. Then in 18 months' time, we'll roll it out. We'll start to charge people to come on it and make it like the pro license. And in return, you guys will get it for free in your commitment back into helping me and the game build it. And probably 10 or 12 people stuck with it. People like Kevin Thelwell, Mike Rigg, Lee Congleton, Dickie Hammond. So people like that, Paul Mitchell, stuck with it and help the FA generate the qualification. But with the 25 people we initially invited in, and some just didn't have time, but I think we had something like 9 different titles. And we had also all 25 had a different job description. So that was the first hurdle, really, because the 17 that you look like will all look very different and depends on their responsibility. So some will be operations and be in charge of the training ground and the link between the manager and the chairman. Some will be purely and just recruitment focused. Some will have academy, some won't have academy. Some will have women's football, some won't have women's football. Some will have medical and psychology and some won't. So I think it depends on the scope and the breadth of your role. But it also depends on, I suppose, how the club wants to view that role, whether it's, perceived as a conflict or overseeing the manager, whether it's not, how they want to phrase it. But ultimately, in my humble opinion, my view, sporting director, technical director is the person that should be responsible for pulling everything together within the football club from 8 to 38 across all of different disciplines.
Where's the line between where let's call it the role technical director, the technical director has the final say, and the first team coach, the first team manager has the final say?
Final say in what?
A big decision.
I'm being deliberately.
Yeah, I know you are, and I'm
argument
up and let you answer that however you want to. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is you will have a big effect on the first team squad if you're over, say, recruitment. So is there a point at which the technical director could overrule the first team manager on that front? Is there a point at which the technical director can say to a first team manager, you know what the football philosophy is that we're trying to embed here? It really would be better if you utilize that winger that we brought in during the summer. I mean, are these blurred lines still? Are they straight in your head? Where are they?
Right, they're really straight in my head. But again, this is me and how I work, and this is the clubs or the organisations I've worked for. When you say a big decision, if the big decision is who's the next academy manager, it's not the first team coach's job.
Yeah.
So that's clear. Again, in our view, if it's a big decision, it is we're signing player X. Ultimately, from my point of view, there is no point having a disagreement with the first team manager, because for example, if I want to sign him and he doesn't, he's not going to play him. So it's a fruitless exercise. So we would work off a sort of traffic light system. So recruitment department have got to like him. It's got to stack up on, data and numbers. And by that I mean, contract value. Can we afford him? Can we not afford him? And the first team manager's got to like him. And if all 3 of those things are ticks, green lights, whatever you want to be, we'll go ahead. If one of them's orange or one of them's okay, well, let's discuss it. Why? Well, he's a bit pricey. Well, let's try and get him a bit less. First team manager, not sure. I need to see a bit more or whatever. Okay, well, what else can we give you to make your mind up? Or a recruitment department going, well, look, we think there's better in the market, and the manager going, look, we want this one. So we chat it through. But I think on that one, and that's the one everybody wants to get their teeth into, there is no point, in my view, the technical director or sporting director overruling the manager on a player that's in the 22, 23 man first team squad. because if they do and the manager doesn't want them, they're not going to play them. So that becomes a waste of money.
But what about if it's burning a hole in your soul? What about if your forensic attention to detail means you've seen things that they don't, they just aren't grasping the elements that you have? You can see long-term value and making the club some money in the long run. I mean, have you been in a situation yet at Brighton, were you at West Brom, where it went backwards and forwards quite a lot to reach the final consensus decision?
Yeah, of course. They're big decisions. They're multi-million-pound decisions. And, if it didn't go backwards and forwards, there'd be something wrong. And, in any business, you talk about university business, British Airways, whatever. If there's a multi-million-pound decision, several people get involved, and rightly so. So, if there is some, but, it's healthy debate. We talk about constructive conflict, and, Graham might be, well, look, I really like that one. I think this one will better. Okay, why? Tell us. We don't understand, because this one we think can do X, Y, and Z better. He's younger. He's better value. And either you end up agreeing and signing the player, or you end up disagreeing and you don't. Ultimately, that's right. But I think, I've described my role in the past as a bit of a relationship builder, marriage guidance counselor, whatever you want to be. But I've got to get on the right page with whichever manager I work with, head coach I work with. I've got to understand his philosophy. What does he want from his team? What does he want from his players? What does he like? What doesn't he like? Because there's no point me bringing in players that I know he's going to go, he's not any good to me. How's he going to fit in with what I've got? He's not better than Lewis Dunk, or he's not better than any other player he's got in that position. So it's my role, I think, to put people and players in front of him that I think he's going to like, and try and get the best we can from a recruitment department for the money that we've got available. I think there's other players that fit into different categories. So if it's an investment player or a player that's not ready for our first team, of course I would run it by the manager, but it might be a different situation. So Alexis McAllister is one that we signed at Brighton. Now, we signed him. He didn't have a work permit. He wasn't going to come into the first team. We felt that in time he would be good enough to get a work permit and get into the Argentinian national team. But when we signed him, it didn't really matter whether the first team manager liked him or not, because he wasn't going to impact the first team. So I think they're different discussions. And I always try and work in a no surprises environment. So I'd never want Chris Hughton or Graham Potter or Roy Hodgson or Gareth Southgate or anyone I've ever worked with to read on Sky Sports or BBC, Brighton have signed player X, and they're like, what? We didn't know anything about it. So of course there's a joined up process, but they'll be more or less involved, or depending on the age or what that player is being bought for.
Thank you. That clarifies a lot there. Can I ask about team selection? Now, I promise you this is not a trip up question, but say when you went into Brighton, there was a clear philosophy that the owners, the Blooms, wanted you to kind of implement. And I guess you bought into that when you took the role. And then you appoint a manager in Graham Potter that you feel will fit to that philosophy. Let's say your first team manager starts to go off at a tangent on selection, or has his own way of dealing with a crisis. I mean, what is the toing and froing over the course of a week? Let's say you're on a bad run. You're desperate to get a win. You will have your ideas about how that can be achieved with what personnel. Just what's the toing and froing there, Dan, please?
First team selection's got nothing to do with me. So
you wouldn't go into the manager's office and go, we need to be solid at the weekend. I think you wouldn't ever recommend no.
So that's not my job. And I'll tell you why it's not my job. Because you end up, if you're not careful, being like a fan. I don't watch the players training every day. I don't have time. That's Graham's job. So he'll take training. When we're playing, our last game we were due to play was Arsenal. So I don't have time to watch Arsenal and go in depth of their strengths and their weaknesses. That's Graham's job. So he'll not only does he see how the players are training every day, he'll be trying things different in training. Is it a back three against Arsenal? Is it a four? Is it this? Is it that? He's the one who studies how our players are doing and how the opposition's going to be. Now I'll end up, jumping in on an ill-informed opinion and decision that I haven't had the time and the focus or the skill set. He's the manager. I'm not. Now my job is to support. So when Graham or anybody else is going through a bad time, my job is to support them, and I'm supposed to be a critical friend. So if it's the other way round, and again, it's my responsibility to build the relationship that I've got the ultimate trust from Graham, that he knows he can come in and go, Dan, I don't know whether to play a 3 or a 4 at the weekend, or come on, help me. Player X is not quite at it at the moment. What can I do? How can I get the best out of him? Whatever it may be. Now, if he chooses to come and have that conversation with me, if he chooses to come and have a performance conversation with me, I've been, really disappointed with the set plays for the last 3 weeks. What have you seen from the stands? Brilliant. But I would never, ever go and impose myself into his room or any other manager's room and started trying to tell them how or who to play. That is not the role, and that's dangerous ground.
Bearing in mind how pivotal, you've already said, human relationships are, have you worked on that side of yourself? Have you worked on your communication skills to have that? Because, you have to be all things to all people, and often within the space of a 15-minute walk down a corridor.
Yeah, some would say I have, some would say I haven't.
Okay. Why do you say that? Does someone?
Tongue in cheek. I'm sure there's some people out there that I've upset in a 25-year career. It's the nature. We're in professional sport. You have to make tough decisions on players, on staff, or whatever. So I would always try and treat people as human beings. So even if it's bad news for them, I would try and do it in a humane way. So I'm not afraid to have conflict conversations. I don't shy away from them. It's part of the role. If I have to release a player, a member of staff, a restructure, I'll do it myself. I won't hide behind anybody else. So I think there's that. But yeah, I mean, in answer to your question, I always try and get on with, I've been told I can get on with the majority of people. So my role is, I've got to go and sit in the boardroom. I've got to go and present and liaise with the board right the way down to the under-9s coaches and players and parents to scouts, to agents. And so, yeah, I would be conscious of relationships, and I'd work quite hard on relationship building and emotional intelligence, trying to read people and trying to do the best I can in build relationships, and probably just working off honesty. And that would probably be my main driver. So yeah, I think it's important. It's an important part of the role, and I would work hard at it. Whether I'm any good at it, it's not for me to say.
I think probably your track record and being recruited by some very big organizations speaks for itself. I've watched you prepare for big presentations. I've been hosting conferences where you've been, say, the first speaker of the day. Will you just take us through how you do that? Because I think this is increasingly apparent, and it's part of the work I'm doing with UCFB on exec education, that this is a massive area as we move in this fast changing world, just being the best we can be in those scenarios. But how much work goes into, say, a 45-minute presentation to staff, or a half-hour sort of bundle up of what's been going on to the board? Just take us through your process, will you, please?
Yeah, again, it would depend. It depend on the magnitude of the event or the meeting. I've been in meetings before where I've come out and I'm really disappointed with myself. I'm really annoyed with myself because I haven't prepared properly. So I sort of, one of my personal objectives, keys, mantras, as you like, is always be meticulously prepared for every meeting. Now, I would be lying to you if I said the number of meetings I have every day, everyone is the same and is of the same importance. But I go through my diary today. I've had, this is my 4th meeting of the day. One was with a Zoom call with Graham. I have a list of things on my iPad.
Okay.
So I would have a to-do list. I've not prepared this. So, okay. So there's my list of things that I had to speak to Graham about. Okay. I'm not showing you it. I'm just showing you that there's a list. Yeah. I've had a meeting with, Zoom meeting, keep saying meetings now, with our head of mental wellbeing. She sent me a document through, so I made sure I spent half an hour reading that through before we chatted it through. So I think if you're back to why I have a meeting, and unless there's a proper reason for having a meeting, don't waste people's time. So I would always try and be as prepared as I can, even if it's 15-20 minutes before the meeting. Just make, right, what's this meeting for? Who's in it? What do I want out of it? What's it about? and just try and make sure, especially if I've called the meeting, because the last thing I'd want to do is waste anybody's time. So first and foremost, prepare, and don't waste people's time. They're there for a reason. They're busy people, well-paid people. If you go back how much they're getting paid per hour, that's an expensive mistake. So I'd always try and be really prepared. And that, I suppose, goes back to the first bit of your question about preparing for a conference at St George's Park or a presentation. It would probably start about 3 months before.
Wow.
So I would know that I'm doing something like the Licensed Coaches Club. So I know I'm doing a presentation, a big presentation. There's going to be 200-300 people in the room. It's big. It's important. It's important to me. It's important to the organisation. So it would start about 3 months before, and I'd start to think about what that would be. What do I want to say? What's it about? I've asked you today. What do you want to know? What's it about? So I'm prepped. I know, or at least I know the line of thought. So if the conference on managing change, if the conference is on player development, okay, what are the key messages? And then I would use. I'm a writer, Clem. So I'm getting my iPad out again. So the app that I've got on here. So I've got 170 notes. I don't know if you can see that.
We can't quite make it out. Is that sort of with the pen you do it, or do you type?
Yeah. So 170 notes.
Wow.
Okay, so that's with a pen that I write on. There's 170 things going through my head, or I'm preparing for. It might be an individual. It might be a meeting I've been to. I've written notes. I haven't written them up yet. And so I would start to write ideas 3 months in advance for something like that. And I'd just jot down, I could do this. Here's a phrase that I think is appropriate. Here's a story. Here's a picture. Here's and that framework would start. And then probably 2 months in, maybe start to put a PowerPoint together. Month in, go through it, add in. That doesn't work. And if it was, I might use 10 PowerPoint slides. It would start off at being about 25. No, I don't need that one. Take that one out and start to cut it down. And then, go through, because again, quite often you're restricted by time. So you've got quite a tight time slot. I'd make sure it would fit in within the time. We'd always have a clock. So you know where you're at.
You were one of the ones for being on time, in fairness, mate.
And then on the day, go in, rehearse it. So I would stand in the room. I'd go through it twice in the room. Not the exact time, but I'd go through the slides. I'd stand at the back of the room and go through it. Right, what does it look like from the back of the room? What I'm going to say, bang, go through the slides. Then I'd go and stand on the lectern and check it's all right on the screens and go through that again. Probably 5 or 6 minutes, not the whole shebang, not the whole 30 minutes, but right, that slide means that. Don't mention that then, because that's coming in slide 4. And probably try and use the slides more for my triggers that one I want to talk about than necessarily content on the screen. So quite thorough.
Would you have bullet points as well to follow that you've kind of put in your notes with a bit, or would you put them to one side on the sort of presentation, or would you kind of wing it off the slides? What would be your method?
Yeah, no, if I've got slide content and I can see the slide content, my trigger points are off the slide content.
Fine.
If I'm doing a presentation or a talk where I haven't got slides, then I would have the cards. And I'd work off bullet points off the cards. So it more of a speech rather than a presentation. I'd work off the cards.
Thank you. Right. We've kind of flipped big picture with a lot of our chat. Can I take you back to when you were given the job of designing a nation's DNA? You've got a blank sheet of paper and you are starting a process that you want the whole country to buy into. I mean, how much guidance did you have in your initial brief when you were coming up with England DNA? How daunting was it to have a blank sheet of paper in front of you? How on earth do you go about building a restructure of a nation's football philosophy?
Well, I was really lucky in that St George's Park got built as I started. So the job really, the reason I got the job and they wanted a technical director was, so Trevor was coming towards the end. He was, he wanted to retire in the 18 months, 2 years time, whatever it was. And we had St George's Park. So the remit was to bring St George's Park to life. They wanted it as a national coaching centre to be the hub of English football for teams and coach education. There wasn't a remit, you've got to have a DNA. It was just part of my interview process was, how are you going to bring it to life? What would you do? And so I talked about, having some underpinning philosophies and principles that we'd hold in teams and coach education, because what we couldn't have was our coach education was delivering the game looking like that, and our teams were playing it like something different. So we had to align those two. And also wanted to, I quickly realized that you only got access to international players for 50 days a year if you were lucky. They had the players were with the clubs for the remaining 200 and something days, and of course they've got a bit of time off. So the clubs probably had 4 or 5 times more contact with the players than we would have. So if you've got a squad of 23 players from 14 different clubs, 14 different ways of doing things, and you only see those players 4 or 5 times a year for 10 days, you'd better be pretty clear on your principles when they come in and play for England. So if we then didn't agree with, 15, 16, 17, 18s, 19s, 20s, 21s, first team didn't align, then you've got the melting pot of everyone coming from different clubs, only seeing them for 50 days and having different principles and philosophies in each of your teams, and the coach education philosophy. You had no chance. No chance. So I was given a really good opportunity. St. George's Park was new. Go and build a facility, not literally brick by brick, but bring it to life, align coach education in the teams, and just get some principles that we believe in as a nation and we can defend as a nation, and showcase it. And it wasn't about telling the clubs how to play. It was about telling the clubs how we were going to play and what their players would be doing when they came to England. And I suppose it sort of gained a bit of traction from that, going that way around. But it took probably 3 years, 4 years to really get any traction. And I took too long doing it in hindsight.
Why did you take too long?
Well, I think I over collaborated. Okay. So what I was really keen to do. So the first 6 to 8 months went in and observed, what have we got in place? What's really good? Where are the gaps? What can we join up? So,
yeah.
Then we need to put in place a new structure. So we did a bit of a restructure. It probably took about 12 months to get the foundations in place, the staffing structure, what we needed to do. Then the next 2 years, as we're trying to build, our country DNA, I wanted to make sure that we had contributions from every department within the FA. So within the working groups, we'd have somebody from grassroots coach education, someone from pro game coach education, someone from one of the younger teams, someone from senior teams, someone from women's, someone from medical, someone from S&C, and just try to build it. And we ended up 70% of it got done fairly quickly. There's a sort of agreement. But as we're trying to get to the final detail and what does it look like visually, how do we roll it out, it started to get, we got slowed down drastically, really. And that was because I was too keen to go, right, everybody's got a voice. I want everyone to believe in it. I want everybody to feel a part of it. So there's a fine balance between, right, everybody, that's what you're doing, which I don't believe in. Get everybody's buy-in as to why, what it is and why, and then getting total agreement. And with something that big with so many people, I don't think you ever get total agreement. So you have to probably get that amount done and go, right, I've got, so when we were getting, is it counter-attack or is it transition? There'd be a fierce debate on wording and terminology and just like thinking, Christ, we're losing the plot here. We're going off on stuff that doesn't really matter. Let's get back to what it's here for and let's roll it out and have a go. And one of the things that Matt Crocker did, which was really good, it was always developing, always evolving.
You better just explain. Matt Crocker's now at Southampton. I'll just give him his title, Director of Football Operations. Obviously, I can't remember.
There you go. So Matt was like our academy manager. So he was in charge of the development teams at England. And Matt was, always developing, always evolving. So he used the thing about the iPhone. He said, look, Apple, launched the iPhone. If we're waiting for perfection till we launch, we'll never launch. So let's chuck it out. And in 6 months' time, we'll change it. And in 6 months after that, we'll change it again. And I was really lucky that, people like Gareth was under 21 coach at the time. There's some good people in the building. Gareth then becoming first team coach. He was part of the process, and there was a natural evolution. So there was quite a bit of a bit of, I suppose, fortune in starting in somewhere with a blank piece of paper and having some really good people around that helped develop it.
In stark contrast to having that time and space and having to push stuff along, there were a couple of points of crisis. I'm thinking the year is 2016, you had to change your manager, you had to change another one quite quickly after that. How are you in those kind of heat of the moment, issues that come along?
Yeah, part of the job. I actually, I think my personality in someone I've had a couple of personality profile things. I think we've all done them, see what you like, and a couple of things have come back in that that I'm a builder. I think want to get in and build things and start things, and once it's up and running smoothly, I get bored and agitated, and probably starting to interfere too much than I should do. And look for things to do rather than sit back and go, okay, it's working, maybe tweak. So I actually prefer things in a strange way when there's loads to do, and part of that, I suppose, is crisis management. We're in a situation now with COVID-19. It's crisis management. We've got to engage staff and players and safety and keep things going. We may or may not have to come back and play the remaining 9 games. If we do, we've got to be absolutely bang on it. We're in a crucial stage of the season. If we don't, we're preparing for next season. We've got recruitment decisions to make, contact decisions to make, etc. So there's a lot going on. And so back to your question on crisis is, do I like a crisis? That's probably the wrong word. Do I like the challenge of change and fast moving things? Then yeah.
And how instrumental has been having a sort of focal leader in Gareth Southgate and his kind of personality skill set? I mean, entrenched in the organisation as well, having been with the 21s, but such a brilliant tone setter, and almost it seems would it be fair to say he's almost, with regard to the lack of player pool, had an effort attitude? Let's just go for it. Why put restrictions on? Just how important. There is a question in here somehow, Dan, and I hope you're getting the essence of it. But just a man that seems as though he's the right fit.
Yeah, I've been so lucky. Every job I've had, I've loved, and I've worked with some brilliant managers, so some really, really good people. I've been so lucky, and Gareth's one of them. Now he's really different to Roy, to Graham, to Chris, to Tony Mowbray, to Robbie Di Matteo. All the others I've been really lucky. They're all different. They're all different. Gareth is. First of all, he's a great human being. He's a top bloke, and the people watching this won't know him, and very difficult to get to know the England manager. He's, it's a high-profile job, and he wants to stay private. But he's such a really good guy that wants to help people and wants to help organisations, and fundamentally wants to do the right thing for people. So when you start with a position like that and wanting to try and help people and players, it's a good position to start with. Obviously, he's played for England. He's coached in the Premier League. He's been an under-21 coach and gets development and frustrations of young players, and obviously now flourished in the job as England senior manager. So, he's had some really good experiences to put him into the role of being England manager. But he's also worked for the FA and a number of other things. He was Trevor's assistant doing a number of things. He really helped on small-sided football and the rollout of smaller-sided football. So he was going around the county FAs. So he understands things like FA Council, the board, how the FA is structured, some of the politics it's involved with leagues, with LMA, PFA, clubs, players. So he's got so many hats that he can wear, and a dad. And he's got so many hats that he can wear, and he just gets he always understands the other person's viewpoint and point of view, which makes him a really good ambassador. And a really good fit for understanding so many different stakeholders if you're the England senior manager.
How painful was it to get so close to the prize we all cover in 2018 and not quite reach there?
Yeah, really hard. Really hard. So they reckon semi-finals are the worst games to lose, don't they?
Did you think we were going to win the World Cup?
When we went?
When you hit that semi-final and we were on such a great run, did you think England were going to win the World Cup?
Yeah, well, I thought we could. I mean, obviously, Croatia, France, still some good teams left in it. But I thought we could. We were playing well, had goals in us, and had found a niche from set plays and had won on penalties. So there was lots of things that we were knocking over. Knockout pressure of winning a knockout game, we'd done it. Pressure of winning penalties, we'd done it. Pressure of winning the opening game in the last minute, we'd done it. So we were knocking stuff over as we were going. You're thinking this could be our year. And the draw opened up a little bit as well, didn't it? Without any disrespect to any of the countries we played on the way, it could have been worse from a FIFA rankings point of view and a tournament experience point of view. So, yeah, I thought we were. I didn't expect to win it, but I thought we got to the stage where I was thinking we could win this. We could win this, and I'm fiercely proud of what that team did and inspiring the nation and the messages that we got when we were over there. You don't really realise until you get back just the impact it had on the nation. But yeah, really proud to be part of that and part of something that inspired the nation. And that was the FA's vision, wasn't it? Unite the game, or isn't it, I should say. Unite the game and inspire the nation. And even though we'd won World Cups at youth level, which again, huge part of my life, and so proud of being involved with those things. World Cup winning medals for England, albeit at the junior teams. There are not many of them in this country, Clem, So to be part of that and part of success and part in putting the belief back in the country that England can win. But ultimately, my biggest regret, I think, coming out of the FA is that we never won a big prize. So the women got to three semi-finals, one just after I left, but World Cup, European Championships. Men got to 2 semi-finals, Nations League just after I left, and World Cup. 21s got to semi-finals. But so we never landed the big one, but did win World Cups and European. So I suppose that's the regret. But I decided to leave because it was 4.5 years to the next World Cup. Because obviously it's 2022 and a Winter World Cup. And I felt I needed the rhythm of club football again and that weekly adrenaline rush rather than waiting 4.5 years for the next tournament.
And when you do have a big decision to make in your life, are you plot it all out on paper kind of guy? Are you a gut feel kind of, well, not paper, obviously you use an iPad, you've already shown.
Yeah.
I mean, are you a plotter, planner? Do you look at it like that? Do you make a big decision on gut feel? How do you go about it?
Yeah, I suppose if you're talking about a career-changing decision like, not career-changing, but a big career decision like that, then yeah, I think you weigh up, what is the job? What is the opportunity? The job at Brighton was, a proper technical director's job in my view. So there was, academy, which as we've been chatting through, player development is a big passion of mine. So I wouldn't want to work at a club that didn't have academy or didn't believe in academy or wasn't part of the role. It was building something at a new training ground. It was a new role at Brighton. No one had ever done it before at Brighton. So there was that. But I suppose ultimately you want to work for people that you like and respect. I want to go into work every day and enjoy it. I don't want to go into work every day for a fight. And so Tony Bloom and Paul Barber, Tony, a brilliant owner and chairman. Paul, really experienced and top CEO. The time I took the job, Chris Hughton was in place. Again, loads of respect for Chris. Really good guy, nice guy, big attraction to go and work there. By the time I'd got in February, March time, obviously, I think things were changing. But, I wanted to go and work at a club and a place where I liked the people and it was a worthwhile and meaningful job. And I really enjoyed my job at the FA. So I wasn't going to leave for a job. I didn't need to change job. But I suppose back to something we've already talked about, maybe after 6 years, getting a bit, okay. My role at West Brom, 6 years, technical director before that, 6 years at England. So maybe there's a cycle. And then I've now got family decisions to make as well. So my wife and 3 children were at a stage of their lives where it becomes a family decision, really. The children are now 19, 17 and 14. So where are we? Sort of 2 years on from when I've made that decision, but they're in the middle of A-levels, GCSEs, just going up to high school, 2 of the boys at professional football clubs. So, I either have to relocate the family or I need to be prepared to live away from home a few nights of the week. So things like that have to factor in on your decisions as well.
Yeah. You've missed out one family member though, haven't you? One family member that was a bonus from the World Cup, Dan.
Oh, the dog.
Mm.
Yes. I don't know if you talk to my wife, I'm not sure she was a bonus from the World Cup, the dog. But yes, of course, we'd have to factor in the dog that came about from a bet with my son. That if England got to the World Cup semi-finals, I had to buy him a dog, and I lost. So therefore, we now have a dog.
Good. Look after the dog, because I'm sure there'll be points when he'll be out doing things that young men do, and we'll leave the dog to be looked after by the parents. Finally, you've taken on this incredible journey and described it in lovely detail. Love the washing machine story. I could see the pain on your face when you recount the semi-final defeat with England, etc. I want your top 3 tips, please. 3 things that have underpinned your career, or 3 things that have worked well for you. What would be your top 3 principles, please?
Be yourself, and I say that in that you can't copy or be somebody else. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be yourself, and you know, I suppose understand yourself. We've all got strengths. We've all got weaknesses. It's acknowledge those, and you know, don't be afraid to talk about them with the people around them. So be yourself would be one. Build relationships would be the next. I think we've all got a duty to try and build a relationship, to try and get on with people and understand people we're working with and working for. And too many people I see, they feel it's the other person's responsibility. I think it's all of our responsibility. So be yourself, build relationships. And I suppose the sub one is that. So, because I think that makes your work enjoyable. Again, great phrase. If you don't want to do a day's work in your life, get a job that you enjoy. And by building good, positive relationships, you'll enjoy your work, or you should enjoy your work. And you know, not once in 25 years, not once have I woken up and thought, I don't want to go to work. So I'm lucky. And then the third one is be planned. You've got a plan. So whether it's a meeting, whether it's a presentation, whether it's a transfer window, whether it's trying to sign a player, you can't wing this job. You can't wing it. You might once, you might win a meeting, you might wing one player, but you've got to be planned and prepared. So be yourself, build relationships, and be planned.
Dan, that was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for sharing. Thanks to Dan Ashworth, and thanks to you for watching. I'm Mark Clement. Hope you'll join us again soon with the latest from UCFB's Insight series.